Okay, well, I was really excited to be asked to talk about the good news of climate change because I feel that you, people who are managing churchyards, are in a spectacularly good position to really help with climate change, the terrifying loss of biodiversity, and also actually the lockdown that we're all under now and the current equally worrying pandemic situation. Because churchyards are already incredibly good for biodiversity, incredibly good. And so, in some ways, you need to keep on doing what you're doing so well and keep that continuity, that chain that has been going on for decades, centuries, and in some cases, even millennia. The reason that churchyards are so good for biodiversity is that they're sort of almost like a time capsule. So that point when that land becomes a churchyard and that wall, that sheltering wall is put around it is very crucial because everything that's sort of within it is then kept there on the whole and managed in a very continuous way from that point on. And the wildlife builds up as time goes on. As soon as a stone is laid down, lichens start to grow on it. As soon as a tree grows, a whole host of different species start to live within it. Flowery grassland, the turf of your churchyards, is incredibly varied, incredibly important, full of wildflowers, full of fungi, full of lichens, full of invertebrates. Really something very, very special. And it has been managed in pretty much the same way the whole way through. It might have been managed as a hay meadow and then grazed by sheep in times gone by, and now perhaps it's strimmer and lawnmower, but it's not a million miles different, actually. I wanted to tell you about, oh no, sorry, jumped a bit. One of the slides that's gone past was a map from the church record Cymru showing where the churches are located in your area. And basically they're spread all the way through, bit of a gap over the mountains, but there's an awful lot, and they're continuously spread across the country. And we reckon that there are in England and Wales about 20,000 churchyards, cemeteries, chapel yards, burial grounds of different types. That equates to a land holding equivalent to Exmoor, the Isle of Wight. It's a really large, significant land holding, and each of you are managing one or several of the jigsaw pieces that make up that whole holding. And I alluded to that map of how they're spread across the country, because I think that's really important. You know, this isn't Exmoor, it isn't the Isle of Wight. They're scattered all over the countryside, like a sort of marbles thrown out across. And each one of those is a biodiversity hotspot. It's already excellent for wildlife. And there's two significant things to that. One is you are holding an ark, you are holding a refuge, and you can let the creatures back out of the ark into the wider environment, into your neighbourhoods. And similarly, species that need to move in the face of climate change, they have stepping stones by which to move. So sit back, manage it as traditionally as you can, and perhaps slightly less manicured than you are, perhaps exactly as you're doing it now. And actually, you're probably doing something really good. So there was a survey done in 2014 in Sussex of 40 Sussex parishes. It's called The Nature of God's Acre, Miles King and Mark Betson, who many of you may know. And they surveyed the people visiting churchyards and found out that 65% of them don't go into the church at all. So it's a real point where you can reach people who aren't choosing to come into your building. Of that 65%, only 13% were visiting a grave. The following 52% are there for the peace, they're there to look at the nature, they're there for a walk, they're there for personal contemplation or prayer. They're there to eat their sandwiches in the middle of a working day or rock the baby to sleep. Whole range of reasons. And at the moment, when there's this huge interest and worry about climate change, about extinction, and about and a lot of focus, I think, on our local environment. This pandemic has really made us rethink where we live, what there is in our immediate environment, what lovely places there are to visit that perhaps we've never been in. There's a real opportunity for you to engage that 65% of people who don't come into the building and more people who so far don't know what an interesting place your churchyard is. There's a real opportunity perhaps to break down barriers that may or may not exist between the church and the community, and to generate useful volunteers who might be much more interested in helping to promote biodiversity than perhaps they would be to just simply keep things neat. You can promote community cohesion this way, and all the benefits that brings: the physical health, the mental health, well-being, new friendships, and that great sense of achievement that you get when you have a shared purpose and you can really see differences being made. And also, you can save a bit of money perhaps by managing in a different way, or spread out the hard-stretched resources if perhaps the congregation are really struggling to manage this site on their own without that much help. So I gave you a bit of homework, which I hope Marcus has sent out or will send out soon. I gave you 5 things to try and do within your churchyard. You won't all be able to do all 5 of them. You won't all want to do 5 of them, but please have a think. One is try and create a meadow. Sounds difficult, but actually with a churchyard, all you need to do is let the grass grow for somewhere between 12 and 16 weeks and see what comes up. It can be a large meadow, it can be a tiny meadow. You can make it a nice shape, you can run little paths through it, completely up to you. But just try and let a bit of grass that's been previously mown short grow long and see what's there. If you've got veteran trees, give them a hand. Veteran trees really struggle with extreme weather, and as we know, we've had a lot of that recently, and that's set to get worse. So helping veteran trees makes them more robust and more able to deal with the stresses of climate change. And similarly, make habitat boxes, make bird boxes, bug hotels, the whole range of different ways. You've got a lot of wildlife there already, but make it even more comfortable for them. Take away the other stresses of life, provide them with food, shelter, a place to nest, so that they're facing difficult climate issues, but they've got all the help they can get. And also be a little untidy in some places, not everywhere, but there may be a place where you can be a little bit untidy. Maybe you already are, in which case give yourself a pat on the back and suddenly you're achieving something great rather than feeling, I must get to that dreadful bit at the back of the churchyard. And for those of you who haven't got a beautiful medieval churchyard, there's still things you can do, there's still things. Modern churches can be excellent for biodiversity too. Victorian ones are great, Victorian churchyards can be great. And also, even if you've just got a few pots, try and make them really good for pollinators. We're here to help you as much as we possibly can. That is our remit, is to help all of the volunteers out there doing such brilliant work. So please get in touch, please join. We're 20 years old this year, and we're giving away free membership. So now is the time to join, actually. Please join us, get in touch, use our resources. We've got a lot of information there. I can point you towards it if you can't find it easily on the website. And also, we're really focusing on Wales for the next couple of years. So take advantage of that. There's two reasons for that. One is we've got an excellent working relationship with the church in Wales, and we're keen to really work together and do something big. And the other is we've got a bit of money from the Prince of Wales's charitable fund, which is always helpful. So we're able to really focus on Wales and give you a lot of support. We're also working closely with A Rocha and Eco Church. So for those of you going down that route, again, please draw on us to give you advice and help on achieving those Eco Church targets. I want to just end with quoting another statistic from that Nature of God's Acre. This was from churchyards that were full of wildlife. So of those 40 parishes, some were managed more strongly for wildlife as well as people, and they went to the ones that really were managed for wildlife and were excellent for wildlife, were designated sites, and asked people how they felt about the atmosphere, how they felt about being there. Now 98% of people asked said they felt happy, relaxed, peaceful, spiritual, thoughtful, all sorts of nice things like that. 2% said they felt sad or angry about the wildlife. Now, I don't in any way suggest that you shouldn't listen to those 2%. I suspect you've already heard them, to be quite honest. But I would really encourage you to try and reach that 98%, listen to them, and think how your management of the churchyard can reflect their views as well as those of the 2%.